All right. Good morning, my little chicky monkeys. It is Monday morning. This is actually take number 2 because the first one I did was, as I normally do, as I was pulling out from the RV, headed to work this morning. Unfortunately, it is raining like crazy. Like I said in the first one, I often feel like I wonder where I ended up. Am I in Seattle or am I in Tennessee? I don't know. But it's yucky, it's cold, it's wet, it's nasty. And what I didn't realize is when I recorded this whole thing this first time around, that I was driving, of course, as normal, but the rain hitting the windshield created such a racket on the background audio. It was like somebody had a bunch of paper and they were just doing this right in the microphone while you're trying to talk. It was really odd and awkward. So I'm going to save that one just for the hell of it. But I'm going to try and redo this story for you guys, okay? First and foremost, I love you. I hope you have a great week. And this is another little story from Stewart's, little known facts from Stewart's Almanac. This has got one of my favorite stories from Papa, and it's got a little bit of a skosh of a story from your great-grandmother Mimi. So here we go. Not a lot is known about this period because Pop just won't talk about a whole lot of it, and he can't. But from 1963 to 1967, he was in the Army. And it was a very profound time of his life, something he's very proud of, but he doesn't talk a lot about. 1, because of the situation. 2, because of his security clearance. He's not allowed to. But speaking of security clearance, here's the fun part from Mimi. She, when Pop was going into the military, they did such a deep dive on his security background check that Mimi was getting calls from kinfolk back in the Georgia hills. We come from the Georgia mountains, Smoky Mountains and stuff, and some of these kinfolks live in these little communities that only have one phone at the general store, and they had to walk down to the general store to use the phone. And these people were calling your Mimi and asking her, what does your boy Jimmy got himself into? People are showing up on our porch and asking us questions we don't like. So, yeah, deep dive security clearance. And these are people that your Mimi haven't heard from in 20 years, at that point in her life. So, yeah, that's how high ranking his security was. They went deep on us. But anyway, that's for Mimi. This is the story that takes place from everything that I can gather, circa 1965-ish, down the road and around the corner from the Phu Bai Province of Vietnam, somewhere in the middle of the jungle, nowhere. Okay. Now, this was a base that Pop was on. I don't know what he did. He had a bunch of guys underneath him. I don't know what his ranks were, what their ranks were. Don't know exactly what they did. He can't tell me, but all I do know is that it dealt with locating soldiers in the jungle under fire and pinpointing airstrikes and things of that matter to save them. And he saved a lot of people, and we will probably never know exactly how many he did save. But it was pretty damn important what he was doing. It was so important that this base was like any other military base in the jungle. Little base right there, surrounded by the fence with concertina wire and barbed wire and stuff like that, And but Pop was always diligent to tell me that they had 4 lines of defense on the outside perimeter of their base outside that fence. Okay, and the first line outside that fence was the regular army, regular military. Okay, and just past those guys was a barrier line of Marines, hardcore Marines. So regular military, hardcore Marines. And then the third line of defenses was Pop's favorite. He said that these guys, it was the Aussie Special Forces, and he said they were the craziest sons of bitches he's ever met in his entire life. And so it was regular Army, military, Marines, and the Aussie Special Forces. And then just past them was this huge minefield that circled everything, okay? And then it was the jungle. So he had a lot of security, a lot of defense around him and stuff to protect him and his men and everything from what they were doing. Now, that said, they had it pretty good. They had a little cantina, a little restaurant, and they all got to eat well. They had good supply lines and stuff like that, except for this one period of time. And to hear him tell about it, it was the hottest, muggiest, just worst part of the summertime and the Viet Cong had choked their supply lines and blocked their supply lines. And it was 6 weeks since they had gotten a fresh supply of anything. 6 weeks they had the supply line choked up. And during this whole time, they keep trying to get into the base, you know, because there's no supplies, there's no backup coming. It's just the soldiers and stuff at the base. So during that 6 weeks, Pop and everybody had to eat MREs. Now, these are meals ready to eat. I don't know if you really know what they are. Military. I've never had one. I almost did, and then I thought better of it, just to try them. But from everything I can find and everything I've been told, they pretty much are hell in a handbag. Just nasty stuff, and Pop would rather eat the bark off a tree before eating another MRE if he had to, you know? But that's what they had. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of this stuff. And during this time, again, the Viet Cong were trying to get in and everything, and one of the things they did, Viet Cong had this great idea. They thought, we'll make a pathway through the minefield so we can run in and go in and charge in. Now, how are they going to make this pathway through this minefield? They got the biggest water buffalo they could find and ran its ass right through the minefield. It made it about halfway before it hit a mine and blew up. It was just laying out there in the middle of the minefield. It was hot. They hadn't had anything good to eat, and those Aussies got a look in their eyes like nobody's ever seen. And they got this idea, and they got out there and under fire, and they belly crawled out there, cleared the mines, and tied a rope around that water buffalo and dragged its ass all the way in to base camp. And then a bunch of them set about and they butchered it up, and everybody had steak that night. Fresh steak. Now, it's a water buffalo. Dad's exact words were, it was the toughest, roughest, gamiest steak he's ever had in his entire life. But it was the greatest steak he ever had. And that's the story of the greatest steak in the world. So, I hope you girls have a great week. I love you. And that was little known facts from Stewart's Almanac, the greatest steak in the world. And I will talk to you guys later. Love you. Bye.